Good morning or good afternoon, and welcome to Engaging in Research at Bastyr. Thank you for attending today. My name is Nancy Desmond. I'm the Assistant Director for Admissions at Bastyr. And I'm just going to very briefly introduce today's presentation. We're going to give a broad overview of research activities at Bastyr and also some insight into how research at Bastyr is structured, including a discussion of, about the Center for Student Research and the Bastyr University Research Institute, as well as talking about the research facilities at both campuses, both our Kenmore and San Diego campuses of Bastyr, and we'll describe some of the research interests and projects going on as well. So right now, we have 4 participants in today's seminar, who I'm going to introduce. 5 participants, 4 of them in Kenmore and 1 of them in San Diego. Dr. Paul Amieux is Director of the Bastyr University, Administrative Director of the Bastyr University Research Institute. Dr. Martzen is the Director for the Center for Student Research. Dr. Baljit Khamba is the one in San Diego. She's the Associate Director for the Center for Student Research. And we also have 2 students today, Rebecca Sorensen and Sarah Parson. They will be taking part a little bit later, but I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Amieux to talk, to begin the presentation. He is the director for the Bastyr University Research Institute.
All right, we'll move on to the next slide. All right, welcome everyone, and happy that you can join us. So this slide, I just want to say that whether we're talking about our midwifery program, nutrition, exercise science, herbal sciences and botanical medicine, integrated human biology, or naturopathic medicine, all of these programs have as their basis a strong grounding in the sciences and the careful examination of the existing evidence in their respective fields. So I do want to actually check in with Rebecca Sorensen and Sarah Parsons, who are, one is a 4th year, Rebecca's a 4th year of 5 in naturopathic medicine, and Sarah's a 2nd year student in naturopathic medicine. And in this program, the first 2 years, they cover basic sciences, and Rebecca is now spending most of her time in clinic as a 4th year, going on, and then will be a 5th year. So let's just ask them also about their experience with the science-based educations that you experienced.
I think coming into naturopathic medicine, I had a pretty good sense that science was foundational, but I feel like throughout the first 2 years, especially, the way that we get trained in the basic sciences allows us to see them over and over and over through the systems of the body. And that was a really powerful process. And now I'm in the kind of final move through the systems in my clinical training. Right now, I just finished a quarter studying the digestive system and the cardiovascular system and the respiratory system with naturopathic and more conventional treatment. So we're in our treatment modules, and where Sarah is, you're going through those same systems, yes. But in what level right now?
So in the 2nd year, the 1st year, you do an overview of the normal structure and function of the body, and you look at it from different systems perspectives. So the 1st quarter would be musculoskeletal, 2nd quarter, which we just finished, was respiratory, digestive, and cardiovascular, and so on. So what we just finished, after the 1st year, we did normal structure and function, and now I'm wrapping up the pathology viewpoint of each system. So we, last quarter, mostly focused on what does it look like when things go wrong in the body in these different systems.
Mm-hmm. And then sort of the 3rd year, the year in between us, will be diagnosis. And then when you get where I am, whether you're either in your 4th year out of 5 or your 3rd year out of 4, and you're doing treatment. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. And again, although they're both in naturopathic medicine, I want to stress that you would find this type of planning and structure in all of our mini programs, including, as I mentioned, things like midwifery, nutrition, exercise science, etc. So if we move on to the next slide. This is actually a quote from a book by Dr. Victoria Sweet called a book called God's Hotel. So Dr. Sweet worked at one of the last free hospitals. They're originally in Europe called ALMS hospitals in the United States, called Laguna Honda Hospital in San Francisco, specifically serving some of the poorest and most vulnerable people in that community. She received a PhD in the history of medicine and was very influenced by the slow medicine movement. Has a book now out, a really brilliant book called Slow Medicine, and also very influenced by naturopathic principles. And I'd just like to read this quote to you because it really struck me as I read this book that it was very grounded in holistic and also naturopathic principles. So nevertheless, as I close Causa and Cure, which is a famous book about a 12th century nun who was also someone who worked in one of these hospitals in Europe, in Switzerland. So as I close Causa and Cure for the third time, I was even more grateful for modern medicine than I'd been before, especially for its scientific method, which tests the past, rejects what is ineffective, improves on what works, and passes to the future its powerful results.
So, as you've already heard from Rebecca and Sarah, they give you an example of what it's like for first year NDs and second year ND students and more advanced students. We try to weave throughout all of our programs, not just the naturopathic medicine program, but throughout all of our programs, a real appreciation of the scientific method and using evidence in order to provide your best evidence-informed practice. And when we say that, we mean looking to the research literature for the most current research on a particular topic, and also weaving that in with your clinical training and training that you would have from your basic sciences in order to provide the best possible outcome for your patients. In addition to those basic science courses that were briefly mentioned, things like anatomy, biochemistry, immunology, pathology, we have specialized courses. One of the specialized courses is a course called Integrated Case Studies, where we take what's learned during a week and we wrap it all together, both the clinical modalities and the didactic teachings, wrap them all together into a case presentation. We also have two other specialty classes that we have for students, a Fundamentals of Research Design class that talks about experimental design, human subjects protections, how to really analyze and understand data that you see in the literature, and a companion course called Comparative Evaluation of the Literature. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about the structure of doing research here at Bastyr. All of our research with students is faculty mentored. We believe that's very important to have a really good, strong mentoring on how to do research and the scientific method. I'm the director of the Center for Student Research. My colleague, Dr. Khamba at Bastyr, California, is the associate director there, and she'll be talking with you in a few minutes. Our structure here is people come to me, students come to me, and we talk about their research interests. And I try to match them up either with people internally that they could work with, faculty internally, or people in one of our external collaborations that they might be able to work with. Then when that student-faculty team is put together, they're eligible to apply for what we call a faculty student research grant. And that undergoes an internal review and scoring process, and successful grants internally become funded. That they wind up on Dr. Amieux's desk, and he is in charge of the budget for that. And then ultimately what we want to provide our students with is an opportunity to actually show off what they've done. That's really powerful. One of the most exciting things in my career was the very first time I was published, I was able to see my name on an article. And I can't tell you the thrill that gives you to actually see that, to see yourself in print, that you actually discovered something that someone didn't previously know. So we try to provide the opportunity for students, whether it's to give an internal presentation, our faculty student research day, our annual day here every year, or at some external meetings. We send students there occasionally, or to actually hopefully publish in a peer-reviewed journal article. And that's our goal, the highest quality research that we can do.
And we were going to check in, actually, maybe hear a few anecdotal stories about your experience. Rebecca Sorensen, our fourth year student in naturopathic medicine, and also Sarah. So if you just want to give a minute or two about your experience.
With research?
Yeah, with sort of merging into research also, along with your didactic.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So when it comes to our education, research and doing the research to back up, let me back up a moment. So for many of our classes, including classes like Botanical Medicine and Integrated Therapeutics, where we study plants and their actions on the body, we have to support every assignment that we submit with existing research. So we have to go into the databases, find peer-reviewed articles that show how has this plant been tested previously and what effects have been found. So that is a core of our education. And then specifically for my experience with my own research, probably not my own research projects, but I've been working as a research assistant for the last year in the research department and the Bastyr University Research Institute. And we've been working on a clinical trial evaluating the potential impact of an omega-7 oil supplement on chronic pain and inflammation. So those are two really big ways that research has played a role in my education so far.
Is this a time to talk about my research? Yeah. So in my second year, so the same as Sarah started, I switched to the 5-year track from the 4-year track, and part of the reason that I did that was to have time to kind of follow a passion of mine, which is the emerging body of microbiome research. And Dr. Martzen and Dr. Amieux have helped me shape a project in which we are testing the microbial biodiversity of organic farmers versus a healthy control group. So, and we're looking to see, do farmers have a unique microbiota? Our hypothesis is based on their exposure to the soil plus their lifestyle. So we are in the 3rd year of that. Well, we started it 3 years ago, but we're in our kind of 2nd round of sampling, and we're just finishing that up right now. And I'm waiting for the reports to come in from UBiome, which is this microbial analysis company in San Francisco. And so we have these participants, and we're going to try to see if we can find patterns of uniqueness in the farmers. We've also looked at their soil and are doing soil microbial analysis to see if we can see microbes in their soil coming into the farmers. So
Into their guts.
Into their guts, yeah.
Their guts.
So it's been very fun and very exciting, and I mean, I've been able to do that while being in this program, which is a busy program. And I think what I've been really grateful for is that it has been a time commitment that has been not overwhelming. Like there have been moments that I felt a little busy or stressed by it, but for the most part, it's felt really fun and supportive of my other learning. And so I feel really grateful to have this opportunity.
And I just want to stress that, I mean, with Sarah and Rebecca, Rebecca really came to us with a passion and an idea and convinced Mark and I, and we then sort of got on board and sort of rode along with her creativity and energy. Sarah just is so talented, is working on, did, you know, a heavy lifting on a limb-girdle muscular dystrophy foundation grant that we have. I mean, created an entire REDCap database questionnaire for us, did all of the heavy lifting. So we have outstanding students that actually are the drivers often of a lot of the research that happens here. So I want to stress that they're the ones that are doing bringing a lot of the expertise, skill, and intensity. All right, so if we move on to just to give you a little bit of the trajectory of research over the last 30 years at Bastyr University. Obviously, Bastyr, California has only been with us for 5 years now, but so most of this is going to be Kenmore-centric. But I do want to give you some sense of the background of how the Institute got started. So Joe Pizzorno, one of our 4 founders, strongly supported the idea that we should be a science-based natural medicine university, that our medicine should stand up to scientific inquiry. It's a core tenet of the founding of the school. In 1986, the Office of Alternative Medicine, the newly founded Office of Alternative Medicine, which is now the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health at the National Institute of Health, competitively awarded the University of Minnesota and Bastyr University large grants to found research centers focused on complementary and alternative medicine. The Bastyr Research Center's first focus in complementary alternative medicine was CAM use in people living with who are living with HIV/AIDS. Later funding from the National Institutes of Allergies and Infectious Diseases, another large award, looked at the outcomes of 500 individuals living with AIDS who received conventional care, some of the new drugs that were coming out at that time in the 80s, and those that received complementary and alternative care or were using simply complementary and alternative care. So that was a very big and important outcome study for us. So around 1995, a kind gift from the Thomas and Elizabeth Tierney, allowed for the creation of, you'll see a photo or a video of this in a few minutes, the Tierney Basic Sciences Research Laboratory, which paved the way for more basic sciences research and more competitively awarded NIH grants, and the expansion of our research programs into a variety of different areas, including natural products research, nutrition, cancer, neurodegenerative diseases, and many other areas. Next slide. And then if you look actually at the literature, so at the moment we have about 200 PubMed indexed articles, peer-reviewed articles and reviews, and over 400 MBase indexed. So these are large medical indices that carry hundreds of journals and basically a repository of research, MBase and PubMed. So at MBase we have over 400 MBase indexed abstracts, reviews, and research articles. So if you look at those, they're on a broad variety of topics, including basic sciences, clinical sciences, systematic reviews and meta-analysis, which we'll explain later in another slide, what those are in case you don't know, herbal sciences and botanical medicine, and qualitative and mixed research methods.
So we're going to present a short video tour of some of our research facilities. That should come up now. Here's some video of one of our major basic sciences laboratory, and it's where we do our tissue culture. We have certainly everything that you expect in a tissue culture laboratory. Isolation hoods, our incubators, facilities to do ELISA tests. We have a 5-laser flow cytometer. The students that you're seeing now, Sydney Fragio and Ben Hawthorne, are working with my colleague Jing Meng. She's an MD PhD from China working on prostate cancer. Here in the analytical lab, we see Tanya Dene, and we'll be seeing Dr. Caleb Luan, who's one of our principal investigators on various herbal products. This laboratory allows the analysis and composition of various herbal medicinal products. We have an NMR, GC mass spec, HPLC, high performance liquid chromatography there. Here's an image of our research institute where we do clinical trials work. So if we have to have a particular biological sample taken from a participant in a clinical trial, or we're doing some other measures of blood pressure, or taking other samples, this is where we do this on campus. And we see here is our botanical medicine lab. Various medicinal herbs are drying. We have one of the largest collections of medicinal plants on the West Coast. More drying of herbs, preparations being made within the botanical medicine lab of various herbal medicinals in various forms. And finally, we have an image of our nutrition kitchen where students are practicing making meals, and our nutrition department is very active in research and has that as a requirement for several of their programs. Dr. Khamba is next.
We'll go on to Dr. Khamba.
Baljit?
Yes. So, so as mentioned, I'm Dr. Khamba. I'm at the San Diego campus here at Bastyr, and we are a newer campus. So as such, research here is something that we're cultivating and we're growing with. And some of the things that we've started so far here is, again, by student-led and run by students, is that we do a course here called Advanced Clinical Studies. And in that course, the students are taught how to do a case report. And this is a usable tool. So that way, at the end of this course, they're encouraged to then publish it. And we have a dedicated section in the Townsend letter, which is this this right here. And so we have a dedicated section in the Townsend letter where the students' publications from their class, from the case reports, they can then publish what they've found there. And then the cases that they're taking, because these are fourth-year students that are doing it, it's all based upon the cases that they see in clinic here at Bastyr or the ones that they see on one of the off-site locations. So this is one of the opportunities that students have in research here is through this Townsend letter, as well as other publications. So not just case reports, but if you look onto the next slide, we've also got things that are going on here, such as systematic reviews. So a systematic review is a study of studies, and this is where we've taken a stand to kind of place ourselves as a campus onto some of the research that's ongoing out there. So one of the ones that the students had worked on was on zinc as an add-on therapy to antidepressants for the treating of major depression disorder in adults, and that one's going to get published in the upcoming issue of Naturopathic Doctor News and Review, NDNR as it's known by. Okay, so that's research so far here at Bastyr, at California.
All right, and then we just want to move on. Another fun way for students to be involved in research at the Institute and also at the university is to get involved in research, is to become involved in a study. We do a variety of small clinical studies with natural products companies and foundations. As we mentioned, Sarah's actually sort of been doing the back end of actually creating databases and working as a clinical research coordinator, so she's actually functioning as a researcher. But you can also be a research participant. So we often draw from our student population to participate in these studies. It is a great way to learn about clinical research and what it entails. So those will be ongoing. Another way that you can experience research, and I'll just say that students themselves often create scholarship opportunities themselves by forming science and journal clubs to discuss the latest literature in particular fields such as genomics, nutrition, or exercise science. And here you can just see some of the languaging. Two of our students, one in naturopathic medicine, the other a Master of Science in Nutrition and Exercise Science, who themselves created their own journal clubs with very robust attendance. I participated in Michelle Larry Chang's Genomics Journal Club. They're very often very high caliber. Our students often have amazing backgrounds. Some of them are MBAs, some of them are engineers, etc. So it's an exciting way to see students themselves creating scholarship on campus, which absolutely happens. And now we're going to move on to some of the collaborations we currently have. I mean, historically we've had collaborations with many different universities, but some of the current ones. We've been a long-time collaborator with the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine. And actually, Mark, were you going to talk about that? I think. Okay. So, for example, with the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine, as we have a current large foundation-funded study from Canada called the Canada-US Integrative Oncology Study, or CUSIOS. And that involves up to 10 clinical sites where we're actually looking at the outcomes for people suffering from stage 3 and 4 breast or colorectal or ovarian or pancreatic cancer. And so in those studies, they're actually looking at people that are receiving conventional cancer care, radiation, chemotherapy, antibody therapy, etc., and people that are receiving conventional care with complementary and integrative care from trained naturopathic integrative oncologists, not oncologists, but people that are trained in oncology as naturopaths. We also very excitingly have a recent international collaboration that was formed with approximately 7 naturopathic colleges and more being added every year. Colleges and universities from Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Great Britain, and the United States, where they plan to do outcomes-based research on naturopathic approaches to a variety of health-related conditions in the academic naturopathic clinics. The first outcome study is actually underway, or they're pulling it together in terms of IRB approvals, and that one will be on irritable bowel syndrome.
So some of the other collaborations we have, one of our major collaborations is with our colleagues at the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center. A major study there is a breast cancer outcome study. In that study, it's comparing women who receive conventional care alone to women who are receiving conventional care along with what we term advanced integrative oncology care. And that might be partnering with oncologists to deliver additional naturopathic medicine approaches to help treat the patient, or acupuncture or traditional Chinese medicine. Along with this is a small study that's looking at monitoring heart rate variability in order to help cancer patients have less stress and help improve their overall lifespan and their quality of life.
All right, and then at the University of Washington, which is nearby here in the city of Seattle, we have several collaborations currently running with the University of Washington. One is a completed study that they're actually also seeking additional funding at the Tumor Vaccine Center at the University of Washington. And that is actually was an NIH-funded turkey tail mushroom breast cancer study examining conventional breast cancer therapies and adjuvant therapy with the turkey tail mushroom, and asking about lifespan and quality of life and outcomes. Another study we have is a study in our Department of Counseling and Health Psychology and the UW Center for the Science of Social Connection, and also the University of Connecticut. And that is examining the role of social connections and its effect on disparities in healthcare delivery. Finally, we have a study with our Department of Herbal Sciences and Botanical Medicine and the Botany Department at the University of Washington, examining the effects of different wavelengths of ultraviolet light, that's with Dr. Caleb Blunt here, and the production of metabolites in plants that may have or be medicinally active.
So back in the spring of 2016, students here met at UCSD, University of California in San Diego, to launch the Academy of Health and Medicine Student Alliance, or the AIHM Student Alliance. And this brought together students from a variety of different disciplines and different schools to discuss working and researching collaboratively. So since then, we've had one student work with UCSD and get a publication on Ayurvedic herbs and prebiotics. And we also currently have another student working with at UCSD as well, engaging in some research there. So we've got some good collaborations right here within UCSD as well.
As was briefly mentioned before, we have active collaborations between Bastyr University and McMaster University and the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto, Canada. These studies involve performing systematic reviews, as Dr. Khamba explained before, and meta-analyses. And a meta-analysis is just very simply is combining several studies, very similar studies, in order to derive greater statistical power from those studies and have better confidence in your outcomes and conclusions. A lot of these studies will eventually go into the Cochrane collaboration, and we are an active meta-analysis site for the Cochrane collaboration. So just a broad overview now of some of our current research at Bastyr. Here we see the Botanical Medicine Laboratory again and Dr. Caleb Blunt. Dr. Blunt is one of our principal faculty investigators that works with students looking at various botanical medicines and identifying their active constituents, working with them on quality assurance and quality control. Our colleague, Dr. Lori Mischle, works with Parkinson's patients and with patients with multiple sclerosis. And her studies, one of her studies, she has multiple studies, but one of her studies looks at various lifestyle and environmental factors to see which of those factors really help promote health in those patients and which factors actually contribute toward disease progression.
And then in our counseling and health psychology program, we have an undergraduate and also a master's program. We have several core faculty working on or interested in areas like the therapeutic alliance, strengthening the therapeutic alliance in clinical care, and how to reduce health disparities in the delivery of care. Some of these projects are in collaboration with the University of Washington, and as I mentioned before, also with the University of Connecticut. And then we now have a new program, very exciting. It's 3 years old, actually 3.5 years old. Our new Master's in Public Health program at Bastyr University. And this is directed by journalist, author, and public health professor, Dr. Barbara Goldloftas, who you see here, and her book about environmental decline and health in the Philippines there on the slide. The program has a strong focus on environmental and social determinants of health. Several of our naturopathic medical students have also chosen what we call dual track, which occurs actually fairly often here at Bastyr, where people will add another program, meaning they're pursuing their naturopathic doctoral degrees and their masters in public health. The public health students participate in a variety of research projects all over King County. We have, if you come and visit, all over the 4th floor now are all of the recent projects that are all over King County and various nonprofits and centers, including King County Public Health. The public health students participate, as I said, in a variety of projects all over King County and the Puget Sound area, mainly focused on health equity and social and environmental determinants. And then finally, for well over 20 years, Dr. Leanna Standish, one of our most accomplished professors and researchers in research, has been working, as Mark had mentioned, in the area of advanced integrative oncology. That actually we currently have just finished a major breast cancer outcome study looking at conventional care versus advanced integrative oncology care, which combines conventional and complementary and integrative care. And then also the CUSIOS, which is the Canada-US oncology study. So Leanna is still busily working on developing new outcome measures and instruments so that we can actually reliably capture the effectiveness of our therapies in our medicine, naturopathic medicine and other modalities also.
So we had mentioned this previously about doing meta-analyses, and I just wanted to take a moment to also acknowledge our wonderful library staff who are critical to all of our research here at Bastyr, and who are especially critical in studies that involve systematic reviews or meta-analyses. So I think that kind of winds up our talking at you, and we hope that you'll have some questions for us.
Thank you, everyone. If you do have questions, please feel free to type them into the chat box, and we will answer as many of them as we can today. And I will start off with some questions that we've already received. One of them is, if we were, can a person who is not currently at Bastyr come to any of, are there any research events on campus that a person outside of Bastyr could come to?
Absolutely, absolutely. We welcome people to come. We have our annual Student Research Day. We have frequent clinical case discussions, which we have on campus that bring in various experts, both in basic sciences and in clinical sciences. You're always welcome to come visit any of the faculty, and we can take you on a tour. Can see the kind of research that we're doing now. So yes, please do come.
Do we have the date for the spring?
It's going to be early June. I don't have the, it's a Friday in the first week of June.
It's June 8th.
June 8th, I'm sorry.
June 8th is our faculty student research symposium, so please come.
And then do we have specific research opportunities for undergraduate students?
So we have research opportunities throughout. So for both undergraduate and graduate students, some programs, especially the graduate programs, of course, require a thesis or a capstone project that students have to do. Our ND students are not required to do research, but many of our ND students choose to do research. So it's not part of their program, but they choose to do it, and we're very pleased and happy that they do. So if you're an undergraduate and if, say you come to me to talk about research, I will try to match you up with some faculty that would be happy to work with you.
And here's another question, and actually we've also gotten this question in the past to our admissions advisors. Do I need research experience before I come to Bastyr if I want to participate in research here?
No, you know, all of us who do research, I've been doing research my entire professional career, started someplace. You start someplace, and we understand that. And there are various kinds of research that you can do. You can do bench research where you're working in a laboratory and you're doing tissue culture work or something like that. Or you might do a clinical trial where you have less time and you want to get your feet wet. So Sarah's a new mom, and the kind of work that Sarah's doing now, where she screens patients and she works on databases, that's really time flexible for you.
Oh, yeah.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's been really wonderful. So I came into the program with some research background in my undergrad, but it was in psychological research, which was a little bit different from the type of clinical research that I wanted to get involved in. And so I wound up I was placed in this position as a research assistant in a way that allowed me to sort of really get my feet wet with a totally new form of research. And the team has been really wonderful and flexible in allowing me and providing me with the guidance that I need, and also the freedom to come in and do work on my own time. You know, if I have an hour here or an hour there, or they've even allowed me flexibility to work from home on days where I'm home with my son. So it's very easy to fit it into my life.
Thank you. So what is it possible for students to match with a faculty member and engage in research that no faculty is currently planning on doing or already engaged in?
Well, so that's one of those that depends questions. So we look to see if we can match you up with somebody internally. They may not be doing something currently, but it might actually interest them. So an example of that is something that we're doing with our colleagues at the University of Washington. They're working on uropathogenic E. coli that are highly antibiotic resistant. And one of the ideas that we had with some of our undergraduate students as well as some of our MD students was to look at those pathogens and see if some natural products, which are conventionally used by naturopathic doctors, would have more success than the antibiotics that have failed to treat those pathogens. That wasn't a study that any of us had ongoing, but as we started to get the ideas around, we were able to put together student and faculty teams in order to start to look at that. Does that answer your question? I hope so.
I think so. And here's a follow-up question that's related. So if a student has certain background information and research, can they join a faculty team and continue projects that they already started as a student?
So again, that's kind of a it depends question. So it depends on the project in terms of would there be specialty instrumentation that would be needed, or specialty expertise that we don't currently have. In a lot of cases, it might be possible to work with a student's previous mentor to do a joint collaboration between the two institutions. So I guess what I'd like to say to that is that we're very flexible, and we'll try to work it out. If it's something that you want to do, we'll try to make it happen. I can't promise that we're 100% of the time going to be able to make it happen, but we'll try our best. And whether it's internally here with our faculty here, or with one of our partners at the University of Washington, or at the Fred Hutch, or another institution that we work with, we'll see what we can make happen for you.
Yeah, and I'll just add a case example of that. One of our students that's currently in his first year, when he was applying, we spent a couple hours on the phone, literally. He was very passionate about autoimmune issues and research in autoimmunity, and was interested in knowing what kind of research we did. We weren't actively collaborating in that area, but when he finally arrived, we actively are trying to establish some sort of relationship with the Bastyr Research Institute that is strictly doing research on autoimmunity and immune dysfunction in that regard. So right now he's actually working with Dr. Cynthia Wenner, who's a very talented immunologist at the university, and so they have a research group that he's joined. So he's actually building his skills there, where they're actually looking at natural products and their effects on immune cells. But the hope is that over time, just like with Rebecca's project, we ended up having to engage one of my former students, grad TAs, who's a brilliant, bioinformatician, to help us with that project and pull in people. We pulled in Idaho State University's molecular core facility to be able to do the soil samples. So we searched around for those pieces that Rebecca needed and Tara in their project, and pulled that expertise together completely externally by making connections, making phone calls through connections that we had. So we're doing that right now, for example, with the student I'm mentioning with Bastyr. So we will try. Mark is absolutely right. We can't guarantee that it'll be a success every time, but because we're small and flexible, we can definitely work on those things.
All right, let me try to get this question, correct? Is participation as a researcher, not as a subject, in a research project, is that in addition to the usual course load? That is, this person is assuming not everyone participates in research at the more in-depth level that's been described. So if, in that case, is it difficult to find the time to participate in research with a full-time course load, or how does that get worked out? If the research is not integrated into the coursework?
So it depends on your program. Some programs require you to do a thesis or a capstone project. Other programs, like the naturopathic medicine program, do not. And what I like to tell students when they first come to university, get that first quarter under your belt. Establish your working rhythms, your peer groups, your study groups you're going to work with. You may be coming from another state. You may be coming with a partner or a spouse or children. You have to establish your household. Where do you go to the grocery shop? Places you want to go to eat. All those things you need to establish, as well as getting a good foundation of grades under your belt for that first quarter. Then come to see me and we'll talk more about research. As Sarah said, research can be very flexible, but ultimately it's going to depend really on your time management skills. If you're really a very good time manager, you may be able to fit more hours in a week than less. If you have life issues, for example, you might have a young child, then you might be able to fit in less hours. So it's kind of difficult to answer that question because it's really going to be person-to-person specific. But again, I think there are enough research opportunities that we could provide a really enriching opportunity for people, independent of the amount of hours that they could actually spend in an individual week.
And you guys have any comments on that?
Yeah, just from the NB perspective, the naturopathic program is a very busy and very demanding program. And also saying that I think that everyone kind of finds areas that they are particularly passionate about and really want to do things outside of the core program to feed their passion and inspiration. So I think everyone kind of finds something like that, and it certainly doesn't have to be research, but if that's your thing, then there are a lot of people here to support you doing that.
And I do want to stress, and Mark made that point though, there are programs, undergraduate herbal sciences program, the undergraduate integrative human biology program, the master's and undergraduates in nutrition that have research built into them. You will do a research project. And in some cases, that research will take the entire second year while you'll build skills, then actually design and implement a research project. So as the person asked, I mean, there are programs that are set up. Our new doctorate in acupuncture in East Asian medicine has research built into the program. So it's a very excellent question. It's just naturopathic medicine, the didactic and clinical part does not have research per se built in, even though you can take Cindy Winter and Don Messer and some of our academic faculty's research courses as electives, but all the other programs normally have research is structured into the program.
Well then, talking, a couple of questions here talk about questions specifically related to nutrition and exercise. A couple of people wanted to know about any specific exercise and nutrition research opportunities, and one person asked about environmental behavior or food history research. So can you talk about any specific examples in exercise and nutrition to give people a feel for what kinds of things have gone on here?
So a number of years back, one of our students was interested in parkour. For those of you who don't know what that is, if you've ever seen those James Bond movies where people are jumping from rooftop to rooftop and not killing themselves, that's kind of an urban kind of gymnastics or parkour. And that particular student wanted to look at the various stresses that the body would have. So using videography and various stress meters to measure that. There are studies which are go on continuously with nutrition and exercise science. A study recently looking at a protein that's sourced from insects and whether that would be found palatable, for example, by people. And that's probably kind of an extreme example of the kind of research. But certainly research that looks at various types of exercises and their health benefits and quality of life, what they require in various terms of energy expenditure, using various supplements and how that may or may not help to build muscle, for example. So there are studies that are ongoing and completed.
I would just say one thing that also I really like seeing that happens at this school because of the collection of programs that we have is that sometimes you'll see hybrid projects, for example, in the Master of Science in Nutrition and Exercise Science. So one of our students a few years ago was very interested in wild berry collection. So her nutritional project, her master's project, was to actually sample berries from all over the city in different parks in the city. This was an indigenous plant, the salal, so the berries. And then she worked with Caleb Lund in the herbal sciences and learned in the analytical lab how to analyze for nutrient content, and critically, they were interested in toxin amounts of lead and other things like cadmium and lead in those berries in various urban parks. So they sent those samples over to UW. We paid for that, of course, through the Institute, and they measured the toxin levels in those wild berries, and she did a survey, which she built in REDCap. We have a wonderful survey system that Sarah's quite expert at, far more expert than I am, and basically also then went out into these parks and queried people about their wild berry use. So there she was drawing from, qualitative science, she was doing analytical chemistry on these, looking at nutrient content, toxin loads. So those kind of hybrid projects are really exciting and they do happen.
Thank you. So Sarah had mentioned that she's a research assistant, and our audience would like to know more about that. Is that an opportunity that's readily available, and is there any financial support for it? Any information along those lines would be appreciated.
Do you want to start?
Yeah, okay. So sometimes there is financial support, not always. So if we have an active grant and we have funds on the grant that we can support a student, sometimes we can use work study funds. Sometimes we can put a small amount of money through faculty student research grants. One thing I like to tell students, especially our ND students, is when you come into the program, you're probably not thinking about going to a residency. But when you get to your residency, they pretty much look for four things. They look at your academics, did you do well in school? They look to see if you ever were a TA, if you taught something. And the assumption there is if you can teach something that you have a fairly firm grasp on the material. How were you socially? Did you give something back to society? Did you help homeless people? Did you work in a battered women's shelter? What was your social consciousness like? And finally, they look to see if you did research. Because, you have bad days in research. Everybody does. An experiment fails and you have to pick yourself back up and you have to dust yourself off and you have to get back to it. But people know that if you've done research, that you're that kind of person. And that if you can see something all the way through and get your name on a publication, that tells them something about you and your character academically as well as your character as a person. So what I like to tell students is that research, even if we can't always pay you for it, is its own reward. It allows you to have that pride, a good pride, in actually showing something to the world that had never been seen before. And it can help you in your academic career. Sir?
Yeah, so, excuse me. My position is paid through work study. In applying for my federal student loans, I was approved for a small amount of work study funds. So that is where I think the majority of my payment comes through. There's a small amount that comes through the grant that I'm working on, the grant-funded project, the clinical trial. But I'll be honest, I mean, the amount of time that I'm able to dedicate to research every week, this year, my second year, has averaged maybe like 2 or 3 hours a week. So it's really not, it is paid, but it's not going to replace like a part-time job, for instance. It's the benefit that I get from being in this position, like Dr. Martzen said, it far exceeds the actual monetary amount that I'm receiving. It's more about being involved in such an exciting project and getting my feet really wet with being involved in a clinical trial and being able to gain these skills that I can apply in my future career in research.
Thanks. And we have about 3 questions that generally all boil down to wanting to know about grant applications, if there are small startup grants available, are there student-specific grants available, what percentage of grant applications are approved, generally speaking, and how many are made available each year. So if you could speak to that kind of information.
So let me speak to the process a little bit. So we, on a higher level, our investigators are constantly putting in research grants. Research funding at the NIH now is really tight. The last statistic I read was that something like for every 20 grants submitted, 1 gets funded. So that level of funding is really tight across the country. Our investigators also go to other foundations, for example, the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's, or the Heck Foundation for the studies that Dr. Standish is doing in advanced integrative oncology. So we also seek foundational grants. So we've had NIH funding, we seek foundational grants. We have private funders, we have funding through various industry collaborations. If someone wants us to do some work analyzing some of their products, we have some funding through that. The faculty student research grants, those are small grants that are available, and then faculty and students work together to submit a grant, and then that grant is reviewed internally and scored, and then that's sent to Dr. Amieux, and Dr. Amieux makes the decision whether or not to fund that. And maybe you can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I do want to sort of put these in boxes for you. We get an allotment, the Institute gets an allotment for a work study every year, X amount of dollars, $70,000 that can be used for work study. We have X amount of dollars that's allotted to faculty student research grants. It's not infinite, obviously, we're a small university. And then those are competitively awarded, so Mark very generously spearheads sending those out and also contributing to reviews of faculty student research grants, which are submitted. It's a student or students that and the faculty member that submit their grant. And so that's a pot of money, if you will. So our work study money, our faculty student research money, and the Institute itself has some resources to help fund research. And so we draw from those 3 different pots to try and fund as many projects as we can. It's not open-ended, it is competitive in that we want you to go through the process of learning what high-quality research is. And I want to stress that. Students come, sometimes they'll come and do not have research experience, and it's very important that we get them to have a realistic perception of what the research process is. We have an outstanding human subjects and institutional review board, very, very high quality. Learning how to get a project that involves human subjects, which is many, many, many of the things we do in our programs as the research that's part of our programs and in our other types of research that we do. And so learning how to get through that IRB process, and Rebecca's been through that, and Sarah's learned about that, is a big deal. It's very complex, it requires a lot of skill, and that's something that students learn when they go through these processes, and that's a very powerful thing to learn, is I know how to actually write a grant, write an IRB application, deal with all of the regulatory issues with human subjects, which are many, in the current climate, never been more complex. So all of that, part of the process of getting these applications in is stewarding the students through the process and understanding some of the philosophy, underpinnings, and rigor that is involved in research, right? We don't want to be doing second-class or third-class research. We want our research to be as high a quality, the highest quality that we can bring to it. So anyways, there are different ways that we can fund projects, either externally if we apply to foundations, either through the Institute, through the Faculty Research Fund, or through work study in terms of paying students. Sometimes students also, as Mark said, I mean, the research is a reward unto itself. I'm an administrator, I'm a staff member. I am doing titanic amounts of research right now. I'm research coordinating, I'm a randomization chart specialist, I'm doing work on basic sciences, I'm doing qualitative research. So I am someone who's been a researcher for 30 years and I love research. So am I paid for that? No, but I love it, I'm drawn to it. So I really want to stress what Mark said, that research is also very much about passion, about doing the thing you love. When Rebecca came to us, she didn't come to us with a random project. She came to us with something she was incredibly passionate about. And so she basically convinced us that we need to set up a research project surrounding this, and then she carried the heavy weight, wrote the proposal. Mark and I helped her with that, and then we shepherded it through IRB with a lot of effort, and now it's a 2.5-year-old project. So anyways, I'll stop there.
Well, one final question. Unfortunately, we don't have time to get to everyone's questions. The ones that you didn't get answered, you can either resend them to me at the email above, or that's on your screen now, or any other questions you have for specific people here that you have heard from today, and I will be happy to forward them. Or you can send me a new research-oriented question, and we will take the ones here that didn't get answered and try to respond to them. One final question though, is there a list of research faculty projects, external presentations and publications on your website?
So our website is constantly being revamped, but right now, really the best way really the best way to actually find that information out would be to do a PubMed search and to simply use it as the keyword Bastyr University, and you'll see all of our currently peer-reviewed publications. Another database that you can look to see that would be the MBase database that Dr. Amieux had mentioned previously. And as the website is updated, we can send out that link to folks so you'll know that it's actually been updated. But that is something that's in process right now.
Well, we have reached the end of our program, and so I would just like to thank everyone who attended or registered to attend. Anyone who is registered for this webinar will get the link in a message in a few days. We will be sending out emails to everyone, so I would like to thank all the participants and thank all the audience members, and please do feel free to email me with any questions new questions you have, and we will take a look at all the questions that didn't get answered today and respond to them as we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.